So wouldn't it be great to have a single swing thought you could rely on to crush driver further than you ever thought possible? Hey, Eric Kaplan here. While I've had the pleasure of coaching multiple major champions, I want to give you one single swing thought that you know you can rely on to tap into bigger, more powerful, fast twitch muscles for explosive distance. So when people talk about the takeaway, they talk about what is the first move back, how to get the club in certain positions in your backswing. So what we're going to talk about is exactly that. How do you start your golf swing in the most optimal, efficient manner possible? Because one thing most people can agree upon, and this is all instructors, they say, hey, when you take the club back, you want to see the club being put in a position where the toe is pointing up when the club is parallel to the ground. We've all heard somebody say that, I'm sure, right? And so the thing about this is I absolutely agree. What I disagree with is the manner in which we do so. Because the last thing I want to do to begin my golf swing is early set my hands in the backswing. Because when I do this, first of all, the club is well behind my chest. Even though the club looks like it's in a great spot, I've just set my wrist. I'm creating no coil of my upper body and with it diminished power. The next thing that I hear somebody say is to get the club in this arbitrary place in space is to rotate your lower body back first, as if you're spinning in a barrel. And if I rotate my lower body back first, sure, the club looks like it's in a great spot, but I'm creating no torque between the two halves of my body, first and foremost. Secondly, if my lower body over-rotates, my hip comes off that hip line. Here's making is reverse pivoting, and from here I'm going to fall back my backswing, reducing all the power from my pressure shift or my weight shift. And so the other thing people have said in the past is let me get my left shoulder under my chin. So if I get my left shoulder under my chin, that is a pushing action in the golf swing, which causes movement off the golf ball. Also, if I push my left side, cause my right side to lift, this is not a turn, this is just a shrug of the shoulder. And so what we're talking about here, there's actually a secret engine of your golf swing that will actually force your head to stay centered and still creating more centripetal force, but also a more easy and efficient way to create a golf swing. So one of the things we like to talk about here at Axis Golf is the concept of return on investment. So everyone says you want to get the club going and moving in a certain spot in space, but how do we put the club there? So what we talk about here is there's a very important difference and distinction between pushing and pulling as it relates to a golf swing. So I'm going to borrow you as a model for me. So go and show everybody your better side, so turn around. Glad this guy can take a joke. So put the club across your chest. So Jeff, I want you to be a witness to this and say that I'm pushing him very gently. And so if I were to begin his golf swing with a pushing action from his left side, what happened to his head?
His whole head moved.
Everything moved, right?
He lost balance.
He lost balance. If he begins a golf swing with a pulling action of his right shoulder blade, what happens to his head? Stayed centered. Feel the difference, right? Mm-hmm. And so go ahead and do this pulling action again for me. So it's actually happening is that right shoulder blade is pulling maybe 2 or 3 inches closer to his spine. So the neat thing about this is what you're demonstrating is if the shoulders are out of its socket, see how the shoulder shrugs back? But if you keep the shoulders back engaged in their sockets, that's actually activating muscles, the lats and the rhomboids, that allow for what's called scapular glide to occur. And so this right here is a secret engine of the golf swing in ways that we're going to show you in a second. But in inches, we just said that the shoulder just moved maybe 2 or 3 inches, right? And so if my shoulder blade just moved 2 or 3 inches through this action right here, which I want you guys to all do, put your hands across your chest. Good. Awesome. So what we're talking about here is just that 2-inch pull. Beautiful. What if I said to you that's all you need to be worrying about in your golf swing?
I would say you're crazy.
I'd say I'm crazy. So let's simplify the equation for a second. So if my shoulder blade just moves 2 or 3 inches when I get into this position, how much did my shoulder just move? 6 inches, maybe 8 inches, right? If I'm holding an arbitrary golf club, okay, you see where we're going with this. If I pull my shoulder 3 inches around my shoulder blade 3 inches around my spine, how far did my hands just move? Maybe even 2 feet, right? If I'm holding a golf club, if I get my right shoulder blade to move literally 3 inches, that club is in a perfect toe position, right in front of my body, club parallel to the ground, with a great tilt and a great turn. And so this is a much more efficient engine by which we can create a golf swing. If I'm out there on tour, if I see a caddy holding his player's head when he's hitting driver because he's swinging off the golf ball, the reason why is he's incorporating a pushing action in his swing versus a pulling action. And so what we're going to have you guys do is go through a couple of drills by which we incorporate this element of rotation. And this is going to create a lot more coil and with it a lot more power, because we're actually utilizing what's known as centripetal force in the golf swing. So I want you to go ahead and put your arms across your chest for me. Good. And so you can certainly rotate, But if the shoulders are in their sockets, it gets far easier. Feel the difference, right? Because just by doing this, you're tapping into the powerful muscles, the lats and the rhomboids, that actually allow for scapular glide to occur. Beautiful. So what I want you to do from here is we're going to grab a golf ball each, and this is literally my favorite drill to do with the guys on tour. We call it the one golf ball drill, and for the players I work with, they do this in the mirror literally 100 times each and every night before tournaments. So we're going to get into our posture. We're going to hinge our thighs back. We're going to put a ball right between the palms of our hand. So the first thing you're going to see is this. If I try to bring that golf ball back with my hands, I would lose the golf ball, right? If I try to bring it back with my shoulders lifting, I would lose the golf ball. If I try to bring it back, with my elbows hinging, I would also lose the golf ball. If I keep the ball in between the two palms of my hand, it means I'm using scapular glide. This is the most efficient way to teach anybody how to turn. So again, this action of having that shoulder pull back is what's creating a very efficient turn, beautiful, around the body. And also in doing so, creating a lot of coil. Now the neat thing about this is that if you are setting up with no secondary tilt, which you are right now, you're going to see everything stay very, very centered. However, the next thing we're going to talk about in terms of the secret power move number 2 is how you create a proper pressure shift. So if you were to get, and we're going to go into this in the next video a little bit more, but if you create that little bit of tilt to the spine and you rotate the same way, you're naturally going to feel more weight transfer and pressure shift into your right side without your head swaying off the golf ball, which is really important to understand. So for people who are trying to get you to learn how to leverage ground forces by getting really deep into that right glute, it's a symptom of having secondary tilt. For as long as you don't have it, you might fight even reverse pivoting in the golf swing. Simple things we can debunk just by changing our posture first. So the nice thing about this is just by keeping the shoulders in their sockets and engaged, what you're doing is you're turning on muscles that actually allow for rotation to occur. The brain always strives for simplicity. It wants to do less, always. And so for as long as you are not in this posture without going through the proper primary tilt or engagement or secondary tilt, the shoulder would be out of its socket. It's impossible to rotate from here. That's why everyone has issues with overactive hands in their takeaway. Not their fault, it has to do with their posture. So what we're going to have you guys do, we're going to get you hitting a shot each. First time feeling not right posture, and also the hands getting a little bit more active in the takeaway. You can only hit the golf ball so far doing that. The next thing is we're going to do is we're going to have you hit a couple of shots after doing some of these drills to really prime these bigger, more powerful muscles to engage a little bit more power in your golf swing. So I want you to go and hit one, which would be a little bit overactive hands. So for the first move back is your hands and wrist hinging. That club is well behind the body. You're playing catch up the entire way down. So hit one from there, again, if you can. Good. So again, you can certainly time the hands to hit the ball straight, but that ball is not going anywhere near with the kind of club head speed you can generate, right? So same thing.
You want me to do the incorrect?
We want you to begin your golf swing with an early set of the hands.
Like this.
Let's see what happens when you do that. Good. So for as long as the hands get overly active, if you don't time them well, we struggle to even get the ball airborne. So we're going to have each of you do. We're going to do this drill. We're going to have you do this 10 times just to get the sensation and feeling of what it is to create a proper rotation in your golf swing. Awesome. So as long as you begin the golf swing with that little pull of the 2-inch move, you're creating all the torque down the obliques. You're activating all these fast twitch muscles that instantly create explosive speed. Beautiful. And what we're saying here is, yes, the entire golf swing starts with nothing more than a 2-inch move of that shoulder pulling around the body. So I teach a lot of guys on Wall Street. They love this reference because everything we talk about is about return on investment. Okay? So let's have each of you hit one. Because again, the stuff we're saying here is functional movement. Doesn't matter if you're 16 or 72. If you're chasing 130 miles an hour club head speed or looking at the ball further than your buddies. That's so much more coil. Beautiful. And so what we're talking about here is how to create a impressive and efficient shoulder turn in your first move back. Okay. Everyone says, hey, we want you to create a really big, powerful coil. If we're starting off with the hands, that's difficult to accomplish. We're wasting time. Mm-hmm. If you're beginning your first move back with a coil, it's already happened. Okay. And so when people talk about, hey, you're not swinging with the club on plane, what does that even mean? The swing plane is based upon how you rotate, which is based upon your posture. Okay. So for as long as somebody's saying to you in a lesson, you bring the club back inside, without first addressing your posture, they're putting the carriage before the horse. Because as long as you're in the right posture and you create the entire golf swing with nothing more than a 2-inch move in your takeaway, the club has to get in front of you. The only way a club would get behind you is if my lower body rotates first in my backswing, because my stance width might be too narrow, or my hands get overly active in my takeaway because I'm in a position that doesn't even allow me to rotate to begin with. And that's where what we're talking about here is, first of all, getting the body out of its own way. Secondly, what's the most optimal engine we can utilize to bring the club back? And see how that club's staying right in front of you in the takeaway? So again,
right down the target line.
no question, as a result of nothing more than a 2-inch move. So we're going to have each of you hit one more doing that. So first we're going to have you go through this drill. This is something you can certainly do at home, and I recommend it.
Okay.
We're going to go 10 times practicing your rotation. Yep. The number on the last one was pretty impressive, by the way. Awesome. Because all we're doing is we're priming the body to be able to rotate. Just by getting to this posture, that's what the body wants to do. Sometimes you just need to give it a little bit of a nip in the butt. Awesome. Now, if you were not in this posture first, that would be literally anatomically impossible to do. Awesome. Solid?
Of course, yeah, that was great.
Awesome. Now what I'm loving is that's creating a really, really full coil right off the get-go. And for those of us who have had our friends say, hey, you're getting handsy in your takeaway, this is how we fix that literally in 2 seconds or less. So what we're going to talk about next is power move number 2 and how we actually utilize the ground. But understand that these are all things that are based upon your posture first. I could not get somebody first trying to teach them how to rotate until their spine was in a better position to begin with. That's why going through the primary tilt was so important, because I could not teach anybody how to rotate who's in that posture. Not going to happen. I cannot teach somebody how to rotate until the shoulders are in their sockets, because for as long as we are here reaching the right hand over without that element of secondary tilt and shoulder engagement, rotation's also not going to happen. And that's where one of the reasons as to why a lot of us have issues getting better in our golf swings, we're approaching things putting the carriage before the horse, if that makes sense. You know, by fixing things holistically from a fundamental perspective, we can literally fix any issue in the golf swing. If we're coming over the top, just know that for as long as I'm putting my hand on top of the club, that's what's going to happen. We fix it by creating shoulder engagement and then tilting. For those of us who had an issue, Jeff, we're talking to you here, going ahead and coming up and out of our posture a little bit on the downswing, that was happening because you're getting the weight over the balls of your feet. Your quads are engaged. You would have to come out of your posture from that position. So what we're saying here is with driver, you get the ball, the body literally out of its own way, and instantly we can create a lot more power by leveraging your specific anatomy, regardless of age, as well as how to activate those fast twitch muscles that could create instantly explosive speed. So far makes sense? All right, let's dive even deeper down the rabbit hole.